Bonjour everyone, it's yours truly, Raja Mensakuli, founder of Black Rose Audio. Let's talk about how a speaker works. Now, the words speaker or loudspeaker are oftentimes used interchangeably to refer to the speaker system, which is made of constituent components, or the speaker driver, which is more specifically what I'm going to be talking about in this video. A speaker driver, or more scientific terminology, electroacoustic transducer, is simply a device that sets up the parameters by which electrical signals can be interpreted into sound. Now, if that definition is out of your reach, think about a speaker or speaker driver, shall I say, as a translator. A translator that translates electrical signals or alternating current, which is the nature of the signal being sent from the amplifier to the speaker driver into audible sound. Now, I'm the type of person who really loves to dive deep into how things work. I love diving deep and knowing why things work the way they work. And this comes as a result of knowing the difference between descriptions and explanations, because descriptions are merely just observations and they do not suffice as the why or cover the principles that are involved. That makes something work the way it works. That's what explanations do. My whole life I've been fed descriptions and have been led to believe that those were answers. That has always been my pet peeve, and that is not what we do here. Talk don't cook rice. So with that said, this will involve me going into the topic of ether magnetodielectric field mechanics, also known as field theory. I know that sounds complicated, but don't worry, I'll make it very simple for you all to understand. But I will not be talking about that today because this video is going to be part of a multi-part video series where I peel back the layers from the most surface level and visible to the unseen principles that govern the why as to how a speaker works, with each video building upon the knowledge of the one before so as to give you a lucid, structured understanding as to what is actually going on. And again, descriptions are not explanations. It doesn't matter if we're talking about dynamic drivers, air motion transformers, planar magnetic drivers, electrostatic drivers, ribbon drivers, or balanced armature drivers. They all work on the same principles, which are suspension elasticity, magnetism, and electromagnetism. But for the sake of simplicity, we're going to be talking about the dynamic speaker driver because it is the most common type of speaker driver, and its construction is also a perfect simple outline of the principles that govern how all the various speaker drivers I mentioned work. As you can see on the screen here, we have a labeled cross-section of a dynamic driver with its constituent components. And for the sake of clarity of vision as to how a speaker driver works, I'm going to divide the components into two groups. First group I call the group of electromechanical acoustic components. These are components whose sole purpose is directly connected to the audio reproduction of the speaker driver. Second group I call structural components, which are components that are responsible for the structural support and the smooth operation of the speaker driver. In other words, I will only go over the electromechanical acoustic components first, so you all are not overwhelmed with a lot of information. So then also when I go over the structural components in the second video, everything just kind of falls into place because the structural components are there so the electromechanical acoustic components can do their job efficiently, in whole, making a great sounding speaker driver. The components that fall under this category are the speaker terminals, voice coil, permanent magnet or electromagnet, voice coil former, the diaphragm or cone, the pole piece, and spider/suspension. I'll be going through each component in that order, chronologically ordered according to the chain of effects from when the signal is sent from the amplifier to the speaker driver, demonstrating when each component comes into play. Let's start with the speaker terminals. These are what I like to call the gateways to sound. They are the official door where the signal passes through and enters its journey into being interpreted into sound. They're simply either ends of the voice coil. On every speaker driver, you will see a power or ground symbol. These are only preset terminal roles because throughout the use of the speaker, they change their roles due to the alternating current that is the signal. Next, the voice coil or the moving coil. The use thereof is what defines a dynamic speaker driver respective to all the speaker drivers I mentioned earlier. Now, don't let the name fool you. There is no sound coming directly from the voice coil, but rather this component I like to call the engine of the driver, if you will, because of the fact that It is the reason why the driver is able to pick up signal from the amplifier and interpolate it into sound. The electrical signals being sent from the amplifier and being picked up by the voice coil is the catalyst for the known up and down movements of the speaker driver via the phenomena of electromagnetism. This is due to the fact that the signal is electrical in nature and electricity's nature is to terminate as magnetism. Now, what does that mean when I say electricity's nature is to terminate as magnetism? This comes from truly understanding what electricity is, and it is not what we've been taught in school. I owe it to the great Proteus Steinmetz, who I like to call the forgotten genius in field theory, where in his book, Electric Discharges, Waves and Impulses, written over 100 years ago, he simplifies what electricity actually is and even goes as far as complaining about the fact that even in his time, people were overcomplicating electricity and as a result straying away from its true nature. Human beings and our complexity bias. Isn't it fascinating? And if anyone asks who this man is and what his credibility is to this conversation, well, I dare you to do a nice Google search on Proteus Steinmetz. I have his name in the description below. I promise you, you will not be disappointed. He was the guy who perfected Nikola Tesla's AC generator because in its original form, Tesla's generator wasn't really that efficient. Because of Proteus Steinmetz, we now have our modern electrical grid. But anyway, to get back on subject, when I say electricity's nature is to terminate as magnetism, I mean that when the phenomena of electricity ends or dissipates into whatever material electricity is being directed into, the inverse relationship is the emanation of a magnetic field ab extra to that object. It's analogous to when the clouds dissipate and terminate into the air, the sun is able to shine. That's the relationship between magnetism and electricity, but we will dive deeper into that in my field theory video where I make things very lucid, clear, and simple, I promise. So to bring it all to full circle, that magnetic field generated as a result of electricity passing through the coils is the reason why the voice coil is propelled up or down. Next up, the permanent or electromagnet. The permanent magnet or electromagnet, which is in a type of dynamic speaker driver called a field coil driver, introduces into the equation a standing magnetic field. The standing magnetic field is analogous to what the climbing handholds are to a wall climber. The wall climber being the voice coil, if you will. It sits in place as what is being pushed or pulled up against by the temporary magnetic field emanating from the voice coils whenever a signal is sent to them because of the fact that the signal is electrical in nature and electricity terminates in magnetism, like we talked about. I'm using push and pull as a convention of speaking and to explain the reason for what enables the up and down movement. I'll explain what is actually going on, like I've said earlier. But in short, this phenomena is no different than so-called magnetic attraction and repulsion. In this scenario, alternating current, which is what the signal is from the amplifier, is enabling the oscillation between the two magnetic relationships. This denotates how and why the speaker driver moves up and down in a piston-like fashion. Now to the voice coil former. The voice coil former's shape is no different than that piece of cardboard you get when that roll of toilet paper and paper towel is used up. The voice coil former provides the medium by which the voice coil can wrap around and stay in form because the voice coil is just loose wire by itself. It also serves as the interlocutor between the voice coil and the speaker diaphragm so that the piston-like electromotive force of the voice coil moves the cone, which leads to the air being disturbed and therefore setting up the conditions for the creation of sound. Let's talk about the speaker cone or diaphragm, the part that everyone sees bump. The cone is the last factor of the equation, if you will, of the translation of electrical signals into sound. The cone with its surface area sets up a disturbance in the medium, being air, when moved, and as a result of air resistance, sound is created. Remember, sound is a result of the disturbance of the air by the speaker. The pole piece, the part that no one sees. I try to make that rhyme, whatever. The pole piece is wrapped around by the voice coil former, which is wrapped around by the voice coil, and serves as the railroad for the train that is the voice coil former, if you will, to slide up and down against. In other words, the pole piece keeps the structure that consists of the cone, voice coil former, voice coil on track for precise linear up and down motion. It is also magnetically induced so that the influence of the magnetic field can interact with the voice coil in places outside where the magnet physically sits. Let's talk about spiders. I'm trying to see if I can find my tarantula. I'm just kidding. We're talking about spider/suspension, okay? While the voice coil and magnet, the two components that make up the motor structure of the transducer, serve as the initiator for the signal transference into sound. By themselves, the voice coil will continue to move forward or backwards without any way to reposition the cone for the consistent reproduction of sound. This is where the spider comes in. The spider is the suspension rebounding system of the driver. It allows the moving components to have a floating point of reference to spring from and return to so as to be able to reposition themselves for the consistent reproduction of sound. This floating point of reference the speaker is at when it is not in use, i.e. the rest position, allows for room in both directions of linear travel because the driver moves in both directions for the creation of sound. The spider also ensures that the linear travel of the driver stays as straight as possible. It is called a spider because of its arachnid-like appearance from a cross-section. The zigzags or the lumps even on top from the top section kind of make it look like a spider. But anyway, thank you all for tuning in on part 1 of my video series on how a speaker driver works. I'll be uploading this video and videos like this one on Black Rose Audio's website under the education section and soon to be YouTube channel, so look out for that. But for now, I'll see you all in part 2. Peace. I meant in part 2. Peace. No, in part 2. Peace. Whatever.